We often believe that if we could just solve our immediate problems, clear the inbox, fix our relationships, secure the finances, our minds would finally settle. But science suggests a different, more complex reality. The restlessness we feel is not a flaw in our character, it is a feature of our biology. To understand the modern mind, we must look at the environment in which it was forged. For nearly all of human history, we lived in an immediate return environment with high physical stakes. The risk and threat of danger infused much of our lives with only brief respites. Imagine an ancestor on the savannah. They hear a rustle in the tall grass. The brain has milliseconds to make a calculation. It can assume the rustle is the wind, or it can assume it is a predator. Evolutionary biologists call this the smoke detector principle. If you assume it's a predator and you are wrong, you lose a few calories running away. But if you assume it's the wind and you are wrong, the cost is fatal. Therefore, nature selected for the anxious. It selected for the humans who were hypervigilant, paranoid, and constantly scanning for the negative. We are the descendants of the worriers. But what happens inside our bodies during when we worry? This is where an understanding informs our body wisdom. When that alarm trips, your sympathetic nervous system or fight or flight response takes over. It diverts blood away from your digestive system and your immune system because you don't need to digest lunch or fight a virus if you're about to be eaten by a lion. It pushes that blood into your large muscles. Your vision narrows. Hormones flood your body for immediate survival needs. Your empathy centers narrow. This is a brilliant system for a physical threat that evolved under different circumstances. Today, the rustle in the grass is an email from a boss, a news headline, or a glance from a stranger. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, cannot distinguish between a tiger and a bill that needs to be paid, especially if resources are limited. It floods the body with cortisol and adrenaline in preparation for a fight that never comes. And because the fight never happens and the run never happens, those stress hormones have nowhere to go. They simply circulate, keeping us in a state of low-grade, chronic inflammation. We are living with a prehistoric alarm system that can become permanently stuck in the on position. But this need not be the case. What happens when we simply sit still? Neuroscience has identified a specific network of interacting brain regions known as the default mode network, or DMN. When the human brain is at rest, not focused on the outside world, it does not go quiet. It defaults to the DMN. This network is responsible for self-referential processing. It is the narrator that replays the past and rehearses the future, but swings almost randomly from thought to thought. The DMN rarely defaults to gratitude or contentment. Because of that evolutionary smoke detector we discussed, the DMN defaults to problem solving. It chews on old arguments. It simulates future disasters. It is trying to keep you safe, but in doing so, it keeps you from finding peace in the present. A landmark study by psychologists Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert at Harvard University utilized real-time data from thousands of participants to analyze this state. Their findings were fascinating. The human mind wanders 47% of the time, but the crucial finding was the correlation with well-being. The data showed that a wandering mind is a less happy mind. Regardless of what the subjects were doing, they were happier when their attention was fully engaged with the present moment, even if the task was mundane. This suggests that our default setting may be a low-grade unease. We are biologically wired to leave the present moment in search of problems to solve. Peace, therefore, is not a passive state. It is an active biological override that requires our knowledge of how our minds function and an intention to find peace. Peace will not come without our efforts. A mind that is intentionally present with reality is a happier mind. The connection between the mind and the body is often viewed as metaphorical. Research into telomeres, however, offers a literal bridge. Telomeres are the protective caps at the ends of our chromosomes, often compared to the plastic tips on shoelaces. They protect our genetic data during cell division. As we age, these telomeres naturally shorten. When they become too short, the cell becomes senescent or dies. Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, a Nobel laureate, conducted pioneering research that connected psychological stress to telomere length. The study suggests that high levels of perceived stress and mind wandering can accelerate the shortening of telomeres and therefore our lives. This changes the stakes completely. We tend to think of stress as just a feeling, an emotional cloud that passes. But Dr. Blackburn's work shows us that your cells are listening to your thoughts. If your DMN is constantly signaling danger, your body obeys, and as a result, we age faster. The hardware degrades because the software is stuck in a loop meant for the rare encounter with a tiger and not the constant onslaught of the stresses we encounter in the modern world. The anxieties we harbor and the lack of mental presence are instructing ourselves on how fast to age. The quest for a peaceful mind is not just a spiritual pursuit, it is a matter of biological longevity. The picture painted by evolutionary psychology and genetics may seem deterministic. If we are wired for stress, is peace even possible? The answer lies in neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. We can update our software. We can literally thicken the gray matter in the areas of the brain associated with emotional regulation and shrink the amygdala. But like any muscle, it requires repetitions. We need a bicep curl for the brain. Research-backed methods for dampening the amygdala's response is a technique known in psychology as affect labeling, which cultivates a form of self-awareness. Brain imaging studies have shown that when a person assigns a specific word to an emotion, activity in the amygdala diminishes, while activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area associated with focus and logic, increases. This leads us to our first experiment in pursuit of body wisdom. It is the practice of noting. Let's try this together right now for just 30 seconds. Wherever you are, I invite you to lower your gaze or close your eyes. Notice what your mind does. Does it drift to what you need to do later? Does it drift to a sound in the room? When the mind wanders or when anxiety arises, we do not fight it. We simply acknowledge it with a label. We say gently to ourselves, planning, worrying, remembering. Don't judge the thought. Don't engage with the story, just label it. By applying the label, we engage the prefrontal cortex. We create a wedge of separation between the observer and the instinct. We step out of the evolutionary river and watch it flow by. It is natural to feel drift. It is human to feel anxiety. We need not judge ourselves for these instincts, but we do have the power to train a different response. In the next video, we will examine the architecture of focus and a specific morning protocol that aligns our circadian biology for resilience.